everyone, DeviantART here, and this is the third and final part of the bookshelf tour. So let's get on with it. Starting out with personal phase, we have John Green's The Fault in Our Stars. I think just about everyone knows this book by now. As you can see, I got a signed copy, picked it up at Barnes & Noble. I was lucky enough to see the signed copy there. I was like, oh my god, so yeah. The numero uno. Next up we have The Making of a Story, a Norton Guide to Creative Writing. This is something I got as a textbook for my creative writing class before I went into the whole, maybe actual college isn't my thing, so yeah, this was before I decided to do community college, so I love this one. It has a collection of different stories in it and whatnot, and actually this is one of the things that inspired. Actually, this is the thing that inspired Lucky Number 13. So if it wasn't for this, Lucky Number 13 would not exist, because this has a story by Joyce Carol Oates in here called For Bob Dylan, which is from her collection of short stories called Where Are You Going and Where Have You Been? So yeah, if it weren't for that, Lucky Number 13 would not be in existence, nor would it be in the works. Next up, we have Sweet Blood. Obviously, I love this book. I did a little fan trailer for it. Essentially about a girl with diabetes who has this love for vampires and basically likes to fight the whole thing that she has a whole entire little essay in here during one of the chapters about how she believes vampire folklore may have been based on diabetes and whatnot, and she ends up running into someone who claims to be a vampire, and it basically escalates from there. I love it. I've read it multiple times, obviously, as you could tell from the wear and tear of the book. Yellowing the pages, I've had it for some time now. So yeah, that was Sweet Blood. Next up is Night of the Living Trekkies. I need to do another review of this because, oh my god, my first one made me sound high. Well, considering I was half asleep when I did that, obviously I sounded high. I was basically repeating myself. So, I will be redoing my review of this one. I love it. You don't need to be a Trekkie to read it, but it does help when it comes to getting a lot of the reference jokes. And yes, I'm a Trekkie, and I was laughing at half of it, so it's probably the only zombie apocalypse book I've fully read and loved. So for someone who doesn't really like zombie stuff, the fact that I fell in love with this, yeah, it says a lot. Night of the Living Trekkies. It's amazing. My next personal favorite is The Historian. Another one that I read for a English thing, and this was my senior year. And it's just like I fell in love with it, and I was like, you know what, I have to get this, so I did. It's not your typical vampire story, and also I love the writing. I love all the detail and everything. To me, it has a very similar writing style to Angelology, which I also have and love. So, yeah. That would be the historian. I love it so much. Last but not least, on the personal faves portion of this is Nightmare on Elm Street for a Chance to Dream. Obviously, I've read this one to death, and it finally did kind of fall apart, so yeah, this thing's been held together by a combination of scotch tape and masking tape, so yeah, I've read this one multiple times. I love it. It is gory, so if you have a vivid imagination, this is not for the faint of heart. So yeah, especially since usually when I get around the end where some of the goriest scenes are, people always tend to read over my shoulder. I don't know why, it's always when I get to that part of the book, but I have definitely grossed a few people out unintentionally, because they just start reading over my shoulder like, how do you read that? And I'm just like, well, I like it. Because obviously, Nightmare on Elm Street fan, and no, you will not be seeing this portion of the bookshelf down here, because I will go for movies another day. Because obviously, I've got more than enough to go through. Oh, that'll be next week. Actually, that'll be interesting. You know, I do have other things I want to talk about next week, so yeah. Nightmare on Elm Street, for Chance to Dream. Yes, there's a whole entire series of these, and as with most book series based on a movie or TV show, they are all written by different people, just like Supernatural. So, yeah. And BW got a little Star Trek. Oh, and actually, I wasn't going to mention this one, but I do like this one too. Star Trek Mirror Universe, The Sorrows of Empire. Oh my god, I love it. And yes, it does involve Spock. And yes, it does involve some epic action. And first chapter will surprise anyone who loves the original series, so any Captain Kirk fans, you are going to hate the first chapter even if you keep forgetting that it does take place in the Mirror Universe, because it is very easy to forget that it's the Mirror Universe sometimes. But yeah, that was my personal favorites. So, let's get a move on. Yeah. Engage. That sucked. Yeah. Alright, starting up the books I recommend. Obviously, first three are basically the same ones I started out with. For personal faves, we have Fallen Our Stars, Making of a Story without knocking over Frankenstein, though. Sorry, buddy. Oh. And Sweet Blood. So yeah, that was Fallen Our Stars, Making of a Story, and Sweet Blood. Not that big of a shocker. Moving down here, we also have Angelology, which, yes, I love this one too. Very detailed, and oh my god, I love the writing style. It's amazing. Same as The Historian, which is another one I recommend. So Angelology, The Historian, as well as Hugh Laurie's The Gunseller, because, what can I say? I picked it up because 1, I love the title, 2, I love the cover, 3, I love Hugh Laurie, and 4, oh my god, when I started reading it in the store, I was hooked. Then we have A Clockwork Orange, and yes, this is the complete American version. This is in the revamp that actually has the chapter that was missing from it, which the movie was based on, so you get to read more than what was in the movie. Although I will say right now, it is not for younger audiences, so younger readers do not, I mean, if you can handle mature content fairly well, maybe. I mean, I read this in middle school, and again, I also saw the movie first, again, in middle school. Yeah, it was very weird, and obviously, as you can tell from the way the binding is, I wore this one down. And again, The Historian, I fell in love with it. I'm sure you guys will too. Night of the Living Trekkies, again, gotta. One I should have also mentioned on personal favorites, Chamber of Secrets, favorite book and favorite movie of the Harry Potter series. And despite the fact that I haven't read it yet, I'm going to say Battle Royale. And I'm not going to say it's the original Hunger Games, because granted they both do have battles to the death and involve teenagers, but unlike Hunger Games, they are not fighting to represent their districts. They're not fighting to basically save their families, if that's what they're in there for. They're not fighting for any sort of title. They are being forced into this against their will because their class was chosen. Because yes, I do have some basic knowledge about Battle Royale. So it's like, this group of students was chosen to basically fight to the death. Whoever wins, obviously they are the victor. So I can't wait to read it. No, I will not see the movie first, even though I do want to get it. Another recommendation I have, The Alchemist's Daughter. Again, I love the wording. There are so many things I just love about that. And while I'm up here, I'll also say Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is yet another one that I picked up at the antique store. And we have The Book Thief, obviously. Who doesn't know that one by now, or who doesn't know of that one by now? And then down here, let's go to the more professional books. That way I'm not just like discussing my trekkiness and my love for manga, my very small love for manga. Not the one Star Wars book. It's like Star Trek. Star Wars. Supernatural. Oh. And of course, the classics. I guess I can recommend these if you haven't read them already. But over here, books I recommend would be, obviously, the Anne Rice books. I love my Anne Rice collection. And yes, these are the only ones I have, the only ones I will ever have, because I don't want to get the other ones. BHW, my personal favorite would happen to be the Vampire Armand. And I admit it, I prefer Armand. At least his story. Lestat, yes, I do like it. Interview with a Vampire. Oh my god. I'm just an Anne Rice dweeb. I had the Queen of the Damned soundtrack on my iPod, for crying out loud. Yeah. Okay. And oh yeah, Son of a Witch. I almost forgot that one. It's like I knew there was another one on the shelf I wanted to get. So, Son of a Witch. And if you're willing to try to find a copy of this, because I know for the longest time, every time I kept looking for the other ones in the series, or recently multiple books for this, it kept saying they were out of print. More than likely they are, but now, it's like now when I go to look for them, it's just like, oh my god, they're like everywhere online. They like don't exist in stores, but they're everywhere online. So, if you're willing, if you're a Nightmare on Elm Street fan willing to give it a shot, I suggest it. No, you don't have to read them in any particular order. And actually, I think the one reason I liked Perchance to Dream was the fact that it made me think of Nightmare on Elm Street 6, Freddy's Dead, but it's like everything that it could have been. And in an odd way, it was like Freddy's Dead combined with maybe Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, in a sense. In a sense. Actually, maybe. So maybe it's more like Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Dead, combined with Hellraiser Inferno. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, those are the books that I recommend. Check them out.